KTN News. Get the whole story.
A very good morning from the KTN News Center here in Nairobi. Many thanks for joining us on Inside Politics. We have a lot to discuss this morning, the 9th day of May 2021, and we'd like to take this moment to wish all the mothers and mother figures in this country a happy Mother's Day. We do celebrate you. Now, the BBI Bill has been passed by the National Assembly. We are waiting for the Senate this coming week. We did see an interesting voting pattern inside the floor of the House. We'll get into that. There has been questions now being asked about Deputy President William Ruto, whose allies largely voted against the BBI Bill, but some of them did cross the floor and voted against it, leading to this question: just where are Ruto's numbers in Parliament? We'll try to answer that. Also, we'll get into Ruto's Rutonomics, the bottom-up economic model that we did see him and his allies launch the previous week, seemingly stepping away from Uhuru Kenyatta administration's model. We'll get into that as well. Also, the Tanzanian President Samia Suluhu Hassan in her two-day state visit to the country, holding bilateral talks with President Uhuru Kenyatta, addressing Kenya's bicameral parliament, and of course meeting business people, both Tanzanians and Kenyans, and signing, announcing a couple of deals. We'll get into that, Kenya-Tanzania relations. Many thanks for staying with us. Joining us, I have with me this morning Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, lawyer and political analyst, joining me this morning. We also have Brian Mbogwa, political strategist, back in the show after a very long time, really. We'll also be joined by governance experts Hesbon Owila, and also later in the show, Javas Bigambo, political analyst, will be joining us shortly. Let's get into it. Now, Thursday night's votes on the BBI Bill at the National Assembly has raised more questions as to whether Deputy President William Ruto has die-hard supporters in his hustler movement, or they are mere cheerleaders. His perceived supporters ditching their stand and voting in favor of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Just like members of county assemblies, lawmakers in the National Assembly either voted yes, abstained, or failed to participate in the process. Does Ruto really have the numbers when it matters? Here's KTN senior political reporter Duncan Haimba with a heat map from Thursday's votes.
For months, Deputy President William Ruto's Hustler Brigade has been openly voicing their opposition to the BBI process, accusing proponents of having misplaced priorities.
Raila Odinga alisema ni nyoka na itatuuma, na hii nyoka we are ready. Tutapigana na hii nyoka. Uwa nyoka.
Among the most vocal of Ruto's supporters inside the August House was Bahati lawmaker Onesmus Kimani Ngunjiri.
Me, I'm not for BBI. Wakati wewe utaiba BBI mkiwa na rais, mtuita mkutano, we shall be there. Wimbo ya watu wengine hatujui. Mimi siko hapo.
But when darkness fell on Thursday night at 8 p.m. and Ngunjiri was called, he ditched the hustlers' camp.
I, Onesmus Kimani Ngunjiri, MP Bahati, I vote yes.
He was not alone. Nearly 10 MPs allied to the DP who were in the chambers voted for the bill.
Kwa niaba ya watu wangwana wa Msambweni, napiga kura ya ndio.
Mimi Atibu Abdalla Mashetani, mjumbe wa Lungalunga Kwale County, kwa niaba ya watukufu wa Kwale, napiga kura ya ndio.
Mimi Ahmed Kolosh Muhammad, mjumbe wa Wajia Magharibi, kwa niaba ya watu wangu napiga ndio.
Political analyst Isaac Wabuge says Thursday's events in Parliament have exposed the DP in terms of loyalty from his supporters.
This is totally different from the politics. There were a lot of local political considerations that in the way one voted. Okay. You know?
So this one puts the DP in a case whereby he's actually working on a political eggshell, in that he doesn't have the right numbers. Even if you see the people who came out to vote no, majority of them are from his Rift Valley backyard. So basically, this points to a picture of a leader who has more of the people around him have been going through with him, more of a euphoria aspect of it. But now when they are needed to stand up to be counted, we realize that then they fall short.
There is also the numbers that Ruto is perceived to be commanding among Kenyans. Are they real or imagined?
The numbers disappeared because what is happening is that this PBI is shaping up the 2022 political contest. Now with this, the people from the mountain have been in power 3 times. They know that power is not emotional. They appreciate that when it comes to issues of power, it's about what is in it for us.
Touching on the same, Deputy President William Ruto says, and I quote, "Being a democracy, the National Assembly voted on the Constitution Amendment Bill, and so will the Senate. When the people's turn comes, they too will vote and we will march on. We should respect everyone's decision and accept democratic outcomes. All views make us stronger together." End of quote. Next stop for the BBI bill is the Senate on Tuesday next week. Will the numbers count, or will it be a replica of events in the National Assembly? Duncan Hemba, KTN News.
All right, that is a summary of the BBI bill vote inside the National Assembly on Thursday last week, as we await what happens in the Senate. Whatever happens in both houses of Parliament, of course, the bill has to go to the people for a referendum. Now, let me begin with you, Jarvis. Kenyans largely expected the Parliament to pass the BBI bill, but what is your take on some of those voting patterns that we did see on Thursday?
Well, thank you, Ben. First, it was very interesting to see how the members of the National Assembly voted. Gladly, most Kenyans had anticipated that the National Assembly would vote in favor of this Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. Nonetheless, with the manner in which a few other members of the National Assembly voted in favor of the bill, contrary to the expectation that was held within the public domain and with the expectation within those allied to Deputy President William Ruto, it brought to the fore the issue of loyalty. And appreciating that in politics, loyalty is the nutritious milk that is meant for the survival of a politician, some politicians here decided that, one, regarding the voices that they had heard on the ground of the people that they represent, while they would have retained the love and the charm of the Deputy President, perhaps they would have lost the popularity on the ground. And here, it was a question of balancing. Here, the question of their political survival, especially for the 2022. Some of them, whether they'll be seeking re-election, of course, every politician is ambitious and they want to seek re-election. But here as well, it is a barometer, a possible barometer of how the Senate will vote. Chances are the Senate is also likely to vote in favor largely of the amendment bill. And appreciating that these two houses, consolidated as parliament, is exercising delegated sovereign power of the people via Article 1, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution, it also demonstrates the manner in which the feeling on the ground largely is, and could indicate that if and when we head to the referendum, that the people also may demonstrate that position or depict that position as it was mirrored in Parliament.
Dr. Yes, what does Thursday's voting for the BBI bill say to you?
Good morning, Ben, and nice to join you today and to join my younger brother who has been lost for a while, and Mr. Mbugua. First and foremost, Ben, I always tell my students of history that you must always begin by contextualizing what it is that you're discussing. In 1963, when we attained independence, there were two predominant parties, that was KANU and KADU. But there was one more prevalent fear among the politicians and the people of the time, and that was that two main tribes of Kenya coming together will dominate the rest and nearly annihilate the rest. At that time, the fear was that the Agikuyu and the Luo would dominate the rest of the tribes. And that is how KADU came up, notably led by late Mzee Moi. 59 years later, Ben, that fear is as real as it was then. What I saw in Parliament was a combination of two predominant tribes, howsoever described. You may describe them as ODM, you may describe them as Jubilee Kieleweke. They are predominantly the Agikuyu and the Luo, combining their strength to steamroll the rest of the people into submission. Number two, I have always said that until our leaders and ourselves have an honest conversation about tribes, a genuine conversation, we'll never know peace in this country. What you saw on Thursday was a manifestation of how deeply tribal we are. And those leaders who have been political joy bringers for the son of Sugoi could not hide what it is that they go for, and that is their own. And as Her Excellency, the Governor of Kirinyaga, Anne Waiguru, said, you can only lease or rent the Agikuyu, but you cannot buy them. Onesmus Kimani Ngunjiri's lease term just appears to go to the end. And he's not alone. Look at the Laikipia woman representative, if I'm not mistaken, the Honorable Kate Waruguru. Before then had very, very pleasant words about the Deputy President. The about turn and the somersault is amazing. And so, Ben, let's put in very few words that the tribe was at its best.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let me pick up from there, Brian, from where Dr. has left it. Let's talk about the second in command. I mean, Kenyans expected a lot of MPs will vote for the BBI bill. But they also expect that the allies of the Deputy President in Parliament will largely vote against the bill, and that is what happened. But there are some notable faces who voted against the grain, so to speak. We did see, he has mentioned Kate Waruguru, who I think crossed over some time back, but he also mentioned Kimani Ngunjiri, who has been one of the most vocal, supporters of the Deputy President and speaking against the BBI bill in the past as well. Inabkoi MP William Chepkut, we did see lawmakers from the South Coast, Khatib Moshetani, and one of the latest entrants who the UDA faction played a very big role in getting him to Parliament, Faisal Bader, also voting for the bill. What does this say about the DP's support inside the House?
Thank you very much, Ben. First of all, I want to say that most people are forcing the DP to oppose the bill. And the DP has not taken any position on BBI. In fact, DP has refused this binary thinking of yes and no and brought a third option of it's not my priority. You people deal with your stuff. When it comes to the people, let the people decide. Then that's how it should go. You see, the DP and his troops has not come out and say this is our stand on the BBI. The reason why...
But they have, the likes of Kimani Ngunjiri did, saying
no,
that...
it was not a common position. You see, we are coming from Jubilee, where dissent was not heard of. We've seen in ODM, dissent is not taken care of. It's like a dictatorship. In this UDA house, people are free, unless there's a common position that has been taken. The Deputy President voices his voice at Bomas, and most of his, the stuff that he talked about were incorporated in the current BBI as it stands. And there are local politics in this. You see, in Kwale, they're getting 3 more constituencies. That's understandable. In fact, 4 regions are gaining: Rift Valley, Central, Coast, and Eastern.
Right.
They're getting the lion's share of constituency, and those are sweeteners. But when you ask me, Parliament role in a popular initiative, it's too much ado about nothing. Because in whatever way they vote, the bill must go to a referendum of the people. And in Senate, for example, when I started seeing the likes of James Orengo trying to somehow oppose BBI, something came to my mind. There was a time people were saying BBI actually will not require a referendum.
Right.
And 90%, 95% of the clauses are not the protected clauses. So my thinking was, ODM is playing a certain kind of game. To force a referendum, the only way to guarantee a referendum is when BBI fails in either house of parliament. That's the only guarantee way you'll force a referendum. If both houses passes, the president might decide that 1, 2, 3, 4 items requires referendum, set it aside. The rest, constitution stands amended. If you have a problem, go to court.
Right.
That's the fear of most people. And that's why you saw when the AG and some people started saying that BBI did not require a referendum, most of them, that's when the noises started from ODM camp.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll get into that. Hesbon Owila, give us your thoughts on Thursday's vote by the National Assembly on the BBI bill. Hesbon? Hesbon, can you hear me? We seem to be having a problem with Hesbon Owila, but let me come back to you, Daktari. What Brian is saying there. A lot of, almost over 90% of the clauses do not require a referendum. They just require the president's signature. Where do you see this process going after next week's vote by the Senate?
Thanks, Ben. When my younger brother was speaking here, he threw me into a bit of fancy thoughts. You see, the requirements for the amendment of the Constitution are to be found in Chapter 16 of the Constitution. And when you want to look at whether it will go to referendum or not, you must be guided by Article 256 and 257.
Yes.
Article 256 talks about parliamentary initiative, where the amendments are originated by Parliament. But those amendments must not be those that are touching on protected articles. But Article 257 is clear that a referendum push or an amendment push that originates from the people, the one that is referred to as the popular initiative, is the only one that can have the capacity to amend the protected articles. Among those protected articles that are very key in these proposals is actually the deconstructing of the executive structure.
Okay.
And therefore, the moment you're touching the executive structure, the moment you touch on independent commissions, the moment you touch on national principles and values of Kenya, then you must go to a referendum because it is the people's constitution. And so after this, what I see is a very straightforward process, that the president then must sign it into an act of parliament, and that then should go to the IBC, and IBC within 3 months must conduct a referendum, and it is the referendum result that will decide whether indeed these amendments pass or not. So I do not see any other shortcut in between here, unless I really have to go back to research if there is another shortcut.
Javas, here's a common question I get a lot. Is there a way, after the Senate votes on this, is there a way, or if the people vote down the BBI bill in the referendum, what would that mean? Do you think the proponents would still have gotten what they wanted in those clauses that don't require a referendum?
Well, basically, as it is anticipated, Senate will affirm or vote in support of this bill. And quite agreeable to the sentiment propounded by Dr. Lutalala, my senior, is that upon the ascension of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 into law by the President, whose hands are quick and nearly anticipating the signing of this bill into an act, and I'm sure that the pens have been prepared, it will be a question of just awaiting the determination of the court on this issue of the referendum, because right now the IEBCs are stopped to conduct the same. If at all we go to the referendum and then the people with their sovereign wisdom decide to go against this push of the promoters of this amendment of the Constitution, then the exercise of amending the Constitution will have met its Waterloo. And that is the fact of the law with regard to amendment of the Constitution. But question arises, the President having assented into law that bill that will have come from Parliament, and those issues that do not require the referendum, what happens to them? Then the answer to that question is to be found within the Constitution, Article 257, that if at all it is intended that this amendment of the Constitution as contained in the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, now then to be an act, heads to a referendum. After the whirlwind of popular initiative, then it must be considered that the people, in their wisdom, have decided not to amend the Constitution.
All right. All right. We'll continue to keep an eye on that for you. Of course, this upcoming vote in the Senate, and of course, what happens from there, the President's steps, and the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Let's take a quick commercial break here on Inside Politics, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we shall be seeking to demystify the so-called Rutonomics, the bottom-up approach to economic recovery that has been suggested by the Deputy President, William Ruto, seemingly stepping away from the Jubilee plan, largely. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.